This guy goes around borrowing money from every mafia boss and loan shark in the city. He even mortgages his parents' house, everything he owns. To everyone else, he looks completely insane, like a gambling addict who's about to lose it all, and probably won't even live long enough to regret it. But the truth? Chen Xiao has played them all. Now he has 20 million yuan, and he's about to spend it all on food. Sounds crazy, right? Why would anyone need that much food? Well, here's the thing. Chen Xiao has regressed. And this time, he has a special ability, a subspace where he can store unlimited food, and nothing ever spoils. And more importantly, he knows what's coming. In just 1 month, a heat apocalypse is going to hit. When that happens, money and property become completely worthless. The only things that matter are food and water. Celebrities, billionaires, none of it matters anymore. They'll all be begging just for a single bottle of water. And this time, Chen Xiao refuses to end up like before. In his past life, he wasted everything on a woman who only cared about herself. And when the apocalypse came, she sold him out without hesitation. Yeah, he's not making that mistake again. So what's the first thing he does with all that money? He walks straight into a store aiming to buy all the most expensive ice cream here. In his past life, he was too poor to afford these treats, instead buying them for a woman named Liu Wangqing. Now our protagonist decides to indulge. When the shop worker and a customer mock his outfit, Chen doesn't argue. He orders 10 of every item in the store. The woman bets that if he can pay, she will bow. Our hero reveals a bank balance of over 20 million yuan. He buys the entire inventory for 1 million yuan and pays a 300,000 yuan deposit on the spot. Chen Xiao treats every woman in the shop to free ice cream except for the one who mocked him. This forces the woman to follow through on her bet, bowing to him on the floor. Later, sitting on a park bench, our boy reveals his ultimate card. His supernatural ability, a spatial portal, reappeared with him. This space keeps items in a state of eternal stasis, meaning the ice cream hall stays frozen even in the 50-degree heat of the coming disaster. While he mentally catalogs the weapons and energy reserves needed for his safe house, his phone rings. It is a call from Liu Wangqing. Given his previous life, Chen Xiao views this call as a stroke of bad luck. As the name Liu Wangqing flashes on his screen, Chen Xiao is hit by a wave of bitter memories. After his parents passed away, he viewed this woman as a source of comfort, but he soon learned she was a parasite draining his inheritance. Their relationship reached a breaking point when she demanded a luxury condo in her name and pressured our boy to sell his ancestral home for an 880,000 yuan bride price. The betrayal went deeper during the apocalypse. To latch onto a stronger patron, she sold him off as raw material, ensuring our protagonist didn't die in one piece. Back in the present, he answers the call. Liu Wangqing immediately starts her usual act, whining about losing a gold necklace. Our hero offers to buy her 10 new ones, claiming he made a fortune in crypto. This makes her the perfect pawn. Chen tells her he needs a witness to secure an investment and offers a 5% processing fee for her signature. Since she is currently servicing an old man for 5,000 yuan, the prospect of making 50,000 for a signature is too tempting to refuse. She assumes Chen Xiao wouldn't dare scam her and agrees, unaware he is setting a trap. With that piece moving, our boy turns his attention to survival. He meets with an architect who claims to be a defense master for billionaires. Because the coming disaster involves extreme heat and social collapse, the requirements are extreme. Our protagonist demands exterior walls thickened to 3 meters of ballistic-grade concrete and windows fitted with 3M security glass. To ensure survival, he orders a roof covered in solar panels, an independent generator, and a military-grade air filtration system. He insists on a self-sustaining ecosystem with a 72-hour oxygen supply and water recycling units. The architect thinks Chen is a paranoid mark, but a 1 million yuan deposit changes his mind. Our hero encourages this, telling the man he can name his own price for the final payment. He knows that once the world ends, there will be no final check to cash. As construction begins, Chen Xiao realizes a fortress is useless without protection. While food and medicine are easy to hoard, acquiring firearms is a challenge. Our boy contacts a black market dealer known as Sweet Sauce and heads to a crowded district for a 8 p.m. meeting. The meeting is interrupted when a young woman suddenly crashes into him, fleeing from a group of thugs. They corner her, accusing her of cheating on their turf. As she begs for help, our protagonist recognizes her. It's Li Yuyu, and her appearance in such a place is unexpected. Li Yuyu, a former classmate from middle school, is cornered in an alley by a group of thugs. One holds a bat while another pulls her hair. Chen Xiao decides to intervene as the lead thug demands money and a subordinate suggests she pay with her body. Our boy steps forward and commands them to release her. The thugs do not take the interruption well. One lunges at Chen with a raised fist, but he dodges. Drawing on past experience, our hero snaps the man's wrist and delivers a palm strike. This violence triggers a holographic system notification, a negative emotion, harvesting system that feeds on the fear and rage of enemies. Our protagonist is surprised, as he did not possess this power in his previous life. As another thug threatens Li Yuyu, a large wooden board falls and knocks him out. A man in a tropical shirt drops down, criticizing the group. Chen and the newcomer move in sync, blocking strikes and delivering kicks until the thugs are on the ground. As the attackers flee, the system alerts our boy that he harvested enough fear to unlock a spatial storage expansion. Li Yuyu offers a look of gratitude. Chen Xiao places a jacket over her shoulders and tells her to be careful. She leaves, leaving him with the man in the tropical shirt. This man is Mu Chang, the black market dealer. After an exchange of codes, which generates more clueless emotions for the system, Mu Chang leads him to a private room. Inside, the dealer reveals a Russian-made handgun. Our hero inspects it professionally, prompting Mu Chang to offer a friendship price. Our protagonist asks for suppressors, warranties, and free ammo. This frustrates the dealer, and the system harvests the resulting heartache and shock. Eventually, Chen transfers the money, completing his arsenal. With the weapon secured, our boy moves to settle a debt. He meets Lu Wangqing at a luxury hotel, where she waits in a red dress. Still viewing him as someone she can manipulate, she follows him into a meeting with the loan shark, Zhang Yang. There, she signs a document she believes is an investment formality. In reality, she is signing a deed of sale, making herself the sole guarantor for the debt. While Zhang Yang plans how to exploit her when she defaults, Chen Xiao watches from a distance. He used her to clear the final payment for his safe house. The architect confirms the house is now reinforced to military standards, capable of surviving heat and blasts. Finally, as a news broadcast warns of solar flares and heat waves, our hero stands at his window. He checks his weapon as the sky begins to glow. The world is ending, but he is ready. The disaster begins with a solar flare that disrupts the Earth's ionosphere, sending global temperatures toward a lethal 45 degrees C. News anchors advise the public to avoid non-essential travel. Chen Xiao watches the sky from his window, aware that this spike is only the beginning. Outside, the heat becomes unbearable, forcing citizens to scramble for relief. This fear creates an opening for Li Dafu, the owner of a convenience store. To capitalize on the panic, he uses a megaphone to shout about water and power rations, tricking neighbors into a buying frenzy. Li views the disaster as a scheme and tries to manipulate a group of women, offering discounts if they visit his home later. The desperation of the crowd allows him to maintain control until he spots someone he thinks he can bully. When our boy enters the shop, Li Dafu decides to make an example of him. He grabs our protagonist by the collar and falsely accuses him of shoplifting. The shopkeeper labels him a beggar and threatens to call the police unless he pays for damages. This draws a crowd of onlookers who record the scene. Rather than being affected, our hero remains composed, his gaze fixed on the merchant. To flip the script, Chen Xiao questions the price of potato chips being sold for 50 yuan, asking if they possess a secret cure for heat stroke. This infuriates the shopkeeper. The interaction triggers the negative emotion harvesting system. As holographic notifications appear, our protagonist realizes he can feed his spatial storage by making this man suffer. Chen leans in and claims to see darkness in the shopkeeper's face, mockingly diagnosing him with kidney deficiency and citing his actual symptoms of insomnia and night sweats as proof. Li Dafu is momentarily stunned before exploding into a rage. Our boy tosses a single coin onto the floor as payment for a lollipop and walks out. This generates a massive burst of rage for the system to harvest. By nighttime, our hero is ready to use those points. He spends the energy to expand his portal by 200 cubic meters and returns to the convenience store under the cover of darkness. Chen Xiao opens his spatial portal and vacuums up every shelf of inventory. The next morning, the heat is so extreme that birds fall dead from the trees. When Li Dafu arrives, he finds the interior hollowed out. The loss of his stock sends him into a fit of agony. Back in his fortress, our boy stays cool with a soda, watching the video of the shopkeeper's breakdown on his monitors. The system continues to feed on the misery, and our protagonist's power climbs as the world begins to burn. After hollowing out the convenience store overnight, Chen Xiao stands among the gathering crowd to watch the fallout. Since the shop is now a shell of its former self, Li Dafu collapses in the center of the room, screaming in agony. Neighbors, already tense from the rising heat, speculate that the store owner staged the robbery to manipulate prices. Some whisper about hauntings, causing a spike in fear and suspicion. This wave of negative energy provides a steady yield of points for the negative emotion harvesting system. Our boy decides to use this moment to further agitate his target. Chen remains unfazed. He mockingly asks if the chips are made of gold, reminding the man of his own predatory pricing. This confrontation triggers a memory for the shopkeeper, who recalls the previous warning. Despite having no evidence, Li Dafu attempts to use our protagonist as a scapegoat to cover his financial losses. Our hero proposes a wager in front of the witnesses. If a search of his home yields nothing, he gets the shopkeeper's backup generator. Believing Chen Xiao is still a spineless mark, the man accepts the bet and leads the neighbors to the luxury building. Upon entering the residence, the crowd is stunned by the wealth our boy has kept under wraps. Li Defu frantically ransacks the place, throwing clothes from a closet and checking a refrigerator filled with luxury food. He even opens a safe only to find it stacked with gold bars rather than stolen chips. Since the items in the Eternal Stasis portal are invisible, the search is a total failure. The merchant is left defeated and embarrassed, especially when our protagonist mockingly offers him a crowbar to check under the floorboards. When the merchant tries to brush off the bet as a joke, the neighbors mock his lack of integrity. This embarrassment turns back into rage, and Li Defu attempts to strike Chen. Because of his combat experience, our hero effortlessly catches the fist and twists the man's arm behind his back, forcing him to the ground. The merchant is forced to move the generator immediately. Chen Xiao warns him to make it snappy, knowing that once power rationing starts in a few days, the heat will make it impossible to step outside. As our boy watches the man crawl away, the system harvests a burst of humiliation and fear. Back inside his fortress, the phone rings with a call from a panicked Liu Wanqing. She explains that loan sharks are tailing her and demands to know why they are coming after her just because of a simple signature. Our protagonist looks at the screen, knowing his plan to settle their debt is moving exactly as intended. The Ocean Gang pressures Liu Wanqing for the debt Chen Xiao planted, leaving her distressed. During a video call, she screams at him and accuses him of lying. Our boy maintains a calm expression, using a faked tone of hurt. He asks why she never trusts him, claiming he gave her his whole heart to keep her off guard. While our protagonist plays the part of a wounded lover, he is amused that the gang members are even more impatient than anticipated. As the conversation continues, our hero prepares a meal. He asks if the thugs have her address, and Liu Wanqing reveals she shook them off in the side streets. She warns him not to play tricks, but he dismisses her fears as overthinking. The situation shifts when she sees his dining table. Because Chen is sitting down to a gourmet meal of grilled salmon over rice, she is struck with shock. In a global heatwave where supplies are scarce, the sight of a chilled soda and fresh fish triggers her greed. Watching from her bed while sweating in the heat, she realizes our boy must have struck it rich. This hunger forces her to drop her act. Because she wants a meal, she changes her tactic by propping her chin up and lighting a cigarette. She pulls down her shoulder strap, offering to keep him company if he lets her stay with him. Our protagonist sees through the display. He reminds her that she used to be secretive about her home and never allowed him to visit. Since she is starving and terrified, she dismisses her past behavior and immediately types out her apartment number. Our hero tells her to wait for him. She used to act like he wasn't worth her time, and now she is handing over her address for a piece of salmon. His peace is interrupted by aggressive knocking at the door. Auntie Wang, an older neighbor, tries to use her grandson to guilt-trip him into letting them inside for the air conditioning. She claims neighbors should look out for each other, but Chen Xiao has a long memory. Because this woman once humiliated him and his mother for collecting plastic bottles, he feels no sympathy. Our boy reminds her of how she had security chase them off before slamming the door. This sends Auntie Wang into a rage. She screams at the door, cursing his deceased parents. This outburst triggers the negative emotion harvesting system, providing our protagonist with a surge of rage points while he stays in his air conditioning. With the neighbor dealt with, our hero turns to his final objective. Using a voice changer and a new SIM card, he calls the Ocean Gang directly to inform them that Liu Wanqing is a solitary target at her new address. Having successfully baited both the victim and the predators to the same location, Chen Xiao stands at his window to look over the city, watching as the shadows of his plan begin to converge. Liu Wanqing begins her morning by adjusting her hair and admiring her reflection, confident that she will soon move into Chen Xiao's apartment. She reflects on how he used to treat her, feeling that a carefree life is her right. She sits on her bed and lights a cigarette, satisfied with the arrangement she believes she has secured. This peace is shattered by heavy pounding on the door. Expecting to find a submissive Chen Xiao, she opens it with a smile, but her expression turns to terror when she sees Zhang Yang and two subordinates. The boss ignores her questions and demands the money owed to the Ocean Gang. Before she can react, he strikes her, sending her to the floor. Desperate, she screams that our protagonist was the one who borrowed the money and tricked her into signing. Zhang Yang leans down and shouts that her name is on the document, making the debt legally hers. He orders his men to search the apartment for anything of value. As the thugs dismantle her furniture, Liu Wanqing crawls across the floor, begging them to stop, and claiming our boy will arrive shortly to settle the bill. While his men work, Zhang Yang sits on her sofa holding a bag of her jewelry. He dismisses the items as junk that won't even cover the interest, noting that his crew won't leave empty-handed after traveling through the heat. Panic-stricken, Liu Wanqing offers information about the supplies and hoarding at Chen's apartment. She tries to call our hero to prove he is coming, but the call goes unanswered. Zhang Yang eventually loses patience and grabs her, explaining that Chen Xiao never planned on paying and deliberately sold her out. Shocked and helpless, she is dragged toward the bedroom while screaming for them to target our protagonist instead. The door slams shut, leaving her phone on the floor to transmit her cries. Meanwhile, our hero sits in his room, calmly observing the encounter through a live feed. By nightfall, the gang is finished, leaving a bruised Liu Wangqing on the bed. Zhangyang demands to know more about the supplies. Having nothing left, she confesses that our protagonist has everything: air conditioning, cold drinks, and vast amounts of food. This piques the boss's interest, realizing he has found a significant target. As the gang leaves to head for the fortress, Liu Wangqing is left alone in the dark. Under the quiet night of Luo City, Brother Zhang leads a group of Ocean Gang enforcers toward the target building. Auntie Wang follows as a guide, desperate for revenge and a share of the supplies. She points out the apartment and fuels the boss's greed by describing the air conditioning, food, and alcohol inside. To justify her malice, she paints Chen Xiao as a stingy man who refused water for his neighbors. Brother Zhang promises her a reward once they secure the hall, prompting her to bow in gratitude. She already imagines a defeated Chen Xiao pleading for his life. As the group arrives at the gated entrance, Zhang stops to survey the reinforced exterior and notes the professional setup. A blonde thug raises a baseball bat to smash the door, but the moment his boot hits a specific tile, a high-voltage current crackles through his body. As he collapses, another enforcer tries to help and is caught in the same surge. Zhang and Wang stand frozen while their men are scorched. This display triggers system notifications for confusion and shock as the system begins harvesting their panic. Suddenly, a loudspeaker on the roof blasts an upbeat song. While the gang is distracted, two more men are blasted backward by arcs of electricity from the gate. Inside his fortress, our boy lounges in a gaming chair, enjoying a popsicle while watching the feed on his monitors. Our protagonist picks up a microphone to mock them, jokingly telling the group they have great luck for finding his electric grid on their first step. This infuriates Brother Zhang, who shouts that paying debts is the law of nature. Auntie Wang adds that our hero is heartless, questioning his upbringing. Chen Xiao remains bored and reminds the boss that the apartment's value easily covers the loan. Our protagonist suggests that if the boss wants Liu Wangqing's money, he should find her, as that debt has nothing to do with him. With the gang sweating in the heat and growing desperate, Zhang's rage continues to spike. Our hero leans forward, his finger hovering over a red button on his desk. He warns them he won't be as polite if they continue to look for trouble. When he presses the button, the entire perimeter of the building becomes a cage of electricity. The current fries the gang members, generating a surge of points for pain and despair. Faced with this defense, Brother Zhang is forced to retreat, screaming that the Ocean Gang will have revenge. Auntie Wang is left standing alone, looking up at the building in terror. By the next morning, the sky has turned a terminal red, and the temperature hits 52 degrees. While a news anchor reports on the rising death toll, Chen Xiao enjoys a meal in total bliss. His phone vibrates with notifications from the neighborhood group chat. Auntie Wang and Li Defu lead a digital mob, accusing him of being selfish scum and demanding he share his resources. Instead of being bothered, our boy sips his chilled drink and scrolls through the messages. Because the collective envy and fury of the neighborhood are being broadcast to him, the system processes a massive intake of energy. The screen notifies our hero that his points have exceeded 1,000 and begins calculating a major reward. Chen Xiao begins the day by flaunting his massive food stockpile to the neighborhood. He stands before a wide-open refrigerator packed with fresh produce and chilled drinks, then sends a photo to the group chat. This triggers an immediate flood of desperate messages. While ordinary neighbors beg for supplies, Auntie Wang attempts to guilt-trip him by claiming her legs are failing. The store owner, Li Dafu, demands 2 cases of water. Our boy remains unmoved and states he is not running a charity. Because he explicitly demands trades of equal value and bans freeloaders, the chat explodes with rage. Li Defu calls him a selfish bastard, and Auntie Wang claims he will face karma for watching them die. Our protagonist ignores these threats and leans back on his couch. The collective fury of the neighborhood serves a higher purpose. This surge of malice pushes the negative emotion harvesting system to 3,000 points, triggering a skill upgrade called Spatial Rend. This ability allows Chen Xiao to manifest hairline rifts in the void to sever any object within a 3-meter range. To test its lethality, our hero swipes his hand toward an apple on the table. A white arc of energy flashes across the room and slices the fruit into 2 perfect halves. The consequences of these provocations arrive under the cover of night. A red off-road vehicle pulls up to the building. Liu Wangqing steps out to accompany the cigar-chomping boss, Zhang Yang, guided by Brother Zhang. When the boss asks if this is the target's residence, the guide confirms the location. To further distance herself from her past, Liu dismisses Chen as a useless piece of trash and privately vows that tonight is the night he dies. The situation becomes even more chaotic when Li Dafu and another neighbor spot the gang. Driven by a desire for revenge, they offer to act as scouts. Zhang Yang promises them a share of the supplies, but their greed quickly turns to despair. As the main force marches through the hallway, the thugs begin looting every room they pass. When Li Dafu realizes the men are raiding his own home and tries to protest, The thugs inform him that the entire building now belongs to the boss. Auntie Wang is pushed aside and labeled a bandit by the men she hoped would help her. This betrayal leaves Li Dafu collapsing in the hallway, weeping over his own blindness. Inside the fortress, Chen Xiao remains composed. As the gang gathers outside the door, he casually uses spatial power to toss a sofa into place as a barricade. He stays seated and finishes his meal even as Zheng Yang and his armed thugs confront him. When the boss arrogantly demands the supplies in exchange for a quick death, our boy slowly wipes his face with a napkin. He mockingly notes that interrupting a meal is rude, causing the boss to lose his temper and order his men to cripple him. The thugs charge, but our protagonist moves with blinding speed. He grabs the first attacker's arm and slams his head into the stone floor. When a second man swings a spiked mace, Chen dodges and delivers a devastating kick to the chest. Just as a muscular thug swings a giant battle axe at his head, our hero prepares to use spatial rend. The fight is interrupted when a tear gas canister slams onto the floor. As white gas fills the area, the thugs and their boss are forced into a violent coughing fit and a hasty retreat. Through the thick smoke, the black market dealer Mu Chang appears. While Chen turns to him with a cold expression, Mu Chang simply holds up another canister. He notes that while the boy's combat skills are impressive, he clearly has trouble on his hands. The dealer asks if he is still in the market for premium guns. After neutralizing the threat at his doorstep, Chen Xiao returns to his fortress to share a chilled bottle of water with Mu Chang. The dealer is impressed by the luxury our protagonist enjoys despite the heat, but Chen remains focused on business. He demands to know why Mu Chang has appeared in this territory. The dealer explains he has been tracking a rival boss, Liu Haifeng, whose subordinates are poaching his business. After seeing the gang head toward the building, he followed them and realized our boy was the target. Musen notes the stockpile of supplies is impressive, but he clarifies he has no intention of prying into secrets. Instead, the dealer reveals that Boss Liu is hoarding purified water, which has become a primary currency as temperatures rise. He proposes a partnership where he manages sales while our hero handles the acquisition. Once the water is secured, they will store it in the fortress. Chen Xiao agrees but demands a 90-10 profit split in his favor. This demand sends Mu Chang into a state of shock, triggering a harvest of 40 points for the system. When Chen begins to walk away, the dealer's desperation takes over. He drops to the floor and pleads for an 80-20 split so he can afford to eat. Recognizing that our protagonist holds the advantage, Mu Chang realizes he won't find a better partner. Chen finally accepts the deal with one condition. He receives first pick of any new stock, leaving only the leftovers for sale. With the deal finalized, the two move to a high vantage point at night to scout Liu's industrial stronghold. Mu Chang points out the trading zone where people barter for survival. He also notes that several women, including Liu Wangqing, have been captured. While they watch, Liu Wangqing appears in a red dress, looking away in distress as a man in a suit holds her. Behind the main complex lies the water storage zone, though Mu Chang has not pinpointed the exact location. Our boy decides to infiltrate alone while his partner creates a diversion. The dealer is baffled by how one man could move the water, but Chen Xiao leaps into the darkness, stating he has his ways. Dressed in a black t-shirt and baseball cap, our hero attempts to blend in by the shipping containers, but a guard with a shotgun stops him. When he claims Boss Liu sent him to inventory the water, the guard mocks the lie. Tired of talking, our protagonist decides to test his spatial rend ability. He swipes his hand through the air, releasing an arc of energy that strikes the guard. This generates 50 points of horror and 50 points of pain as the man collapses. The commotion draws another armed guard, but Chen fills the area with multiple energy slashes, harvesting 200 points of terror and despair. As gunfire echoes and more thugs rush toward the intruder, Chen Xiao ducks behind a corner. Suddenly, a hand signals him to be quiet. It is Li Yuyu, who explains she was captured and put to work cleaning the facility, which allowed her to memorize the layout. She leads our hero through an alleyway and throws a metal bucket to distract the patrolling guards. She guides him through a passage with no cameras, eventually reaching a secluded doorway. After telling her to hide, our protagonist focuses his energy. A swirling vortex appears as he slams his hand against the metal wall, blasting it open. Inside the room, a guard spins around with a shotgun, but Chen releases a final energy arc that cuts the man down. As the guard falls, the system records a harvest of 360 points across shock, terror, and agony. Li Yuyu waits behind a rusted metal wall as smoke engulfs the factory. She fears the mission has failed until an explosion rips through the doorway, sending debris echoing through the facility. Huddling against a shelf, she is terrified by the blast and the silhouette emerging from the haze. She swings a brick with all her might, but Chen Xiao catches her arms mid-swing. Our boy remains calm and informs her the job is finished before leading her away. To signal the next phase, our protagonist runs through the flames and fires a handgun into the night sky. This flare illuminates the factory and serves as a signal for Mu Chang, who watches from a rooftop. Impressed by the infiltration, the dealer pushes a cart filled with lit Molotov cocktails off the roof. The firebombs rain onto the warehouse, transforming the structures into an inferno. This distraction forces the thugs to scramble for help, allowing Chen Xiao to guide Li Yuyu toward the south gate through a narrow alley. Their escape is interrupted by a desperate Liu Wanqing. She clings to our hero's shoulders, weeping and begging him to take her. She even offers to forgive the loan debt if he saves her now. As she pleads, she describes the conditions inside the warehouse, claiming she is forced to service others and beaten if she resists. Our protagonist looks at her with indifference. He remembers her mocking him and leading Boss Liu to his doorstep, leaving him with no sympathy. He is haunted by a memory of his past life where he was killed while she watched. Chen Xiao tells her that her acting is pathetic and shoves her onto the pavement. This rejection causes Liu Wanqing's expression to shift to hatred. She vows to take everyone down with her. This surge of malice is intense enough that the system detects a harvest of 999 hatred points. To carry out her revenge, she crawls toward Boss Liu the moment he and his enforcers arrive at the empty warehouse. Since the water stash is gone and a mocking message on the wall threatens his life, the boss is already in a state of fury. Liu Wanqing feeds this rage by claiming our boy called him trash who wasn't worthy of supplies. This manipulation works, and Boss Liu orders his men to the south gate. From a distance, our hero and Mu Chang watch the approaching mob. As the thugs charge forward with bats and blades, Chen stands ready with a burning torch. He throws it onto a fuel line on the ground, creating a wall of fire that blocks the attack. Safely behind the flames, our protagonist watches the screaming boss. This display of helplessness generates a flood of hatred notifications, allowing Chen Xiao to hit the 3,000-point milestone and unlock the spatial barrier. Later inside the apartment, Chen Xiao hosts a hot pot dinner for Mu Chang and Li Yuyu. The atmosphere is celebratory following the humiliation of Boss Liu. Mu Chang laughs while imagining the man's reaction to his loss. As they eat, the conversation turns serious. Li Yuyu expresses deep gratitude, explaining that his intervention saved her from a miserable situation. Our boy remains humble and reminds her of their history as classmates, but she insists his help was life-changing. The mood shifts when Mu Chang notices the sheer volume of supplies, specifically the dozens of massive water bottles stacked against the walls. He questions how our hero managed to clear an entire warehouse alone. After a silent moment, Chen Xiao dismisses the mystery and tells his friend to focus instead on the logistics of moving the stockpile. When asked about her past, Li Yuyu reveals her parents vanished in an accident shortly after graduation. This somber moment is interrupted by a sudden orange light reflecting off the windows. The night sky has turned into a wall of fire. Boss Liu has surrounded the entire apartment block with an inferno, deciding to burn the neighborhood to force our protagonist out. Mu Chang and Li Yuyu panic as they watch neighbors trapped in the flames on the CCTV monitors. While Mu Chang reacts in anger and Li Yuyu asks if they should intervene, Chen remains cold. He recognizes the boss is attempting to use morality as a weapon and refuses to be swayed. Outside, Boss Liu stands among the flames, shouting for Chen Xiao to surrender before the heat becomes lethal. His subordinates continue to pour fuel on the pavement, confident the building has become a furnace. They predict the smoke will eventually choke the occupants inside. However, our hero is prepared. He notes that building a safe house for a thermal apocalypse without fire suppression would be a mistake. With a calm expression, he presses a button on his console. High-pressure turrets on the building's exterior begin spraying a concentrated white mist. Multiple canisters fall to the street, releasing a nano-aerogel that smothers the flames instantly. Mu Chang is impressed by the technology, while Boss Liu watches in a state of impotent fury. Despite reports that they are out of fuel and the mist is impenetrable, the boss orders his men to continue the attack. Our protagonist picks up a megaphone and mockingly invites Liu inside for a glass of ice water. This provocation causes the system to detect a surge of 888 points of fury from the enemy. Realizing the house is a fireproof and self-sufficient sanctuary, Boss Liu decides he must seize it at any cost. He discards the last of his civility and signals his men to hold Auntie Wang and other neighbors hostage, indicating his next move will be even more ruthless. Outside the fortress, the situation turns grim as Boss Liu uses local residents as human shields. Unable to breach the high-tech defenses, the boss attempts to lure Chen Xiao out by brandishing a burning torch and threatening the crowd. This pressure forces Auntie Wang to join the insults, tearfully labeling our boy a bastard for involving the neighbors in his conflict. Inside the sanctuary, Mu Chang prepares to charge out for a final stand, but our protagonist remains composed. He views showing mercy in this environment as a form of self-destruction. The tension peaks when Boss Liu grabs Grandpa Wang by the collar, threatening to harm the elderly man if Chen does not show himself. While watching the CCTV, our hero recognizes the man. This triggers a memory of Grandpa Wang helping him in the ruins of his past life. Because of this old debt, Chen Xiao orders Mu Chang to stay back and protect Li Yuyu while he steps into the smoky street to settle the account. Instead of a standard brawl, Chen Xiao proposes a gamble. Knowing Boss Lu made a fortune in casinos, our boy bets his entire inventory and life against the freedom of the hostages. The boss agrees to a high-roll dice game, certain this round will grant him the fortress. When Lu reveals a roll of 3 sixes, he laughs in triumph. However, our protagonist remains unfazed. When he lifts his cup, the crowd is stunned to see his dice have been sliced perfectly in half. Because the total count of the visible faces now equals 21, Chen Xiao officially beats the score. This humiliation causes Boss Lu to lose his temper and accuse him of cheating. As the system harvests a 500-point burst of rage, the boss lunges with a knife. Our hero uses the moment to test his capabilities, detonating a tear gas canister to mask the area. As the gunmen fire blindly into the smoke, Chen Xiao retaliates with energy slashes, cutting the attackers down while remaining untouched. In a final act of desperation, Boss Lu fires a rocket launcher at point-blank range, claiming everything our protagonist owns belongs to him. To the horror of the gang, the missile shatters against an invisible wall inches from Chen's face. This is the debut of the spatial barrier, leaving our hero standing calmly amidst the debris. Because he has outmatched them, Chen Xiao mocks the boss for trying to go back on the bet and uses his power to drop a sword at the man's feet. Realizing a direct fight is a losing proposition, Boss Lu shifts his demeanor and masks his fear with a forced smile. He attempts to reframe the violence as a misunderstanding, hoping to recruit our boy as a partner to recoup his losses. Our hero stands over him with a drawn blade as the man desperately tries to bargain for his survival. Boss Lu faces a situation he cannot win. He attempts to negotiate by offering a deal, arguing that killing him is a waste of a resource and claiming he is the key to living well in this new world. Since a single infection is a death sentence, he reveals his leverage, a secret stash of antibiotics, including penicillin and cephalosporin. Liu offers to split the medicine if our boy spares him, emphasizing that only he knows the entry code to the West District warehouse. Our protagonist responds by placing a hand on the man's shoulder and leaning in. He admits that medicine is hard currency, but informs Liu that his own stockpile is already larger than anyone could imagine. Sensing an opening, Liu suggests a partnership, and Chen Xiao agrees to end the conflict there. The boss retreats toward his men, confident in his ability to stall for time. However, as our hero watches them leave, he knows he does not need a passcode when his powers can bypass any door. Before heading back inside, our protagonist speaks with Grandpa Wang. He takes the elderly man's hands and assures him the danger has passed. While Grandpa Wang offers to help with odd jobs to repay the debt, a system notification for fear points flashes over Auntie Wang, who watches with malice. Chen Xiao advises the old man to go home and lock his doors, choosing to ignore the neighborhood's resentment for now. Meanwhile, in an alleyway, Boss Lu's intentions surface. He mocks Chen and tells his subordinate, Pineapple Head, that he plans to eliminate the boy once he secures the supplies. Noting that artillery could not touch his target, the boss orders his men to investigate the boy's background. His plans are cut short. High above on a rooftop, Chen Xiao watches the group through the darkness. He focuses his energy and executes a spatial rend, sending a silent, invisible rift through the air that strikes Boss Lu from a distance. A black substance erupts from the boss's chest and mouth as the spatial tear collapses his internal organs. He falls dead on the spot, sending his terrified men screaming into the night. Our hero looks out over them and whispers a final farewell. Later inside the apartment, the television reports that the global heat crisis is spiraling out of control. The broadcast advises citizens to migrate north or shelter in place. Our protagonist knows that government shelters are a dead end, and waiting for rescue is a delusion. He understands that the real nightmare, heat-resistant mutants and awakened humans fighting for resources, is only beginning. This chaos is mirrored at his doorstep. A group of neighbors gathers at the entrance, shouting and demanding that he share his fortress, food, and water. They have decided they will take turns living inside the sanctuary. Instead of being intimidated, our hero remains in his kitchen cooking a steak. He takes a photo of his dinner and sends it to the neighborhood chat, triggering a surge of envy, rage, and despair points for his system to harvest. As a neighbor outside vows to kill him, Chen remains unbothered. To him, their rage is worthless. With his hand on the door handle, our protagonist prepares to head out to scout the West District warehouse. Chen Xiao steps out of his building to find a group of thugs waiting. Their leader lunges with a meat cleaver, but our protagonist outclasses him instantly. In a sudden counter, our boy reappears behind the man, snaps his wrist, and sends him reeling. When another attacker tries an ambush, Chen catches him mid-swing and pins him. Moving with speed, our hero strikes down the remaining men, leaving the group on the pavement. A survivor screams that there are too many witnesses for Chen Xiao to get away with the act. This triggers a fear system notification, but our boy remains indifferent. When the survivor asks if he will finish them off, our protagonist looks down with an icy gaze. To him, an immediate death is too merciful. Instead, he leaves them to the elements. Between the scorching heat and open wounds, he knows infection will set in within days. He walks away, leaving the men in the sun. With that business settled, our hero moves to the West District warehouse to secure the medicine stash. Upon arrival, he spots a security camera and shatters it with a spatial arc before carving a pattern across the front gate to disable the sensors. However, as he pushes the door open, thick green gas begins to billow across the floor. The poison gas forces Chen into a coughing fit, and he collapses to his knees. As his vision blurs, silhouettes appear through the haze. A man in a gas mask leans over him to inject a liquid into his arm. This stranger is a researcher named Lin Guodong. After Chen Xiao wakes up, the professor explains the nerve gas was a security measure for his lab, where he studies human evolution in extreme environments. He introduces his assistant, Su Rui, who wears a purple bodysuit. While our boy is suspicious of their agenda, the facility is sophisticated, featuring vats and a dinosaur skeleton in a containment tank. Professor Lin offers a gift as an apology for the gas, leading our protagonist to a refrigerator stocked with various antibiotics. Chen Xiao packs his bag and departs with a brief thanks, though he notes the professor's enigmatic expression. Back at the fortress, an exhausted Chen Xiao checks his phone to find the neighborhood group chat flooded with pleas for medicine. He posts that he has plenty of supplies but clarifies they are not for sale. This causes the injured thugs to explode in a digital rage. This wave of hatred generates a surge of 99 rage, 200 hatred, and 380 envy points for the system. However, as our protagonist rummages through his haul, his eyes widen. Tucked at the bottom of the bag, beneath the medicine, is a small circular tracking device. Chen Xiao discovers a metallic tracking device in his gear and realizes he is being hunted. To identify his pursuers without revealing his location, our boy turns the situation into a farce. He heads to a nearby alley and attaches the tracker to a stray cat. The move works. Back at the lab, Professor Lin stares at his laptop in frustration while watching erratic, zigzagging red lines on his map. With the tracker following the unpredictable path of a feline, the scientist wonders what kind of game our hero is playing. While this diversion plays out, the neighborhood group chat descends into desperation. Extreme heat pushes people to the brink, and neighbors film video pleas for medicine and water. One mother uses her crying child to guilt-trip the group for supplies, offering a picture book in trade. Our protagonist remains cold, remembering how this woman used the same tactics to hoard resources in his past life. The situation turns toxic when a neighbor labels Chen Xiao a cold-blooded and selfish man. Unbothered by the moral blackmail, our protagonist decides to expose the crowd's hypocrisy. He posts a surveillance photo of Wang Wei, who has been secretly hiding cases of water and canned food in the hallway. He mockingly offers to match whatever she shares with the group first. This exposure turns the neighborhood's desperation into a violent mob. Our hero watches through his monitors as a group of men wielding a heavy axe smash through Wang Wei's door. While she cringes in terror, the thugs ransack the apartment and strip her of supplies. Amidst this distraction, Li Yuyu slips away from the chaos and secures her own backpack of supplies. The focus shifts when neighbors gather around the body of a bald thug, now rotting and swarmed by flies in the heat. As they panic about a potential plague, a medical team arrives. Professor Lin and Su Rui enter the hallway wearing surgical gloves. They claim to be from the CDC and apologize for delays. Because the neighbors fear an epidemic, they immediately view the professor as a savior. Lin performs a professional examination and hands out disinfectant tablets to win the crowd's trust. However, his private thoughts reveal he is only there because the tracking signal went haywire in this area. From a reinforced window, our hero watches with growing suspicion. He recognizes the professor and realizes the medical relief is likely a cover. Chen Xiao receives an unexpected warning when his phone buzzes with a text from an unknown sender telling him to be careful of the doctor. This confirms his fears but raises questions about who else is lurking in the shadows. While our boy catches his reflection in his phone, a figure on a distant rooftop aims a high-powered telescope directly at the fortress. Our protagonist realizes he is caught between a predatory scientist and a mysterious observer, as multiple parties now watch his every move. Chen Xiao attempts to trace the mysterious sender who warned him about the doctor, but the call connects to an automated message. The subscriber is using a virtual number. Because the caller masked their identity thoroughly, our hero realizes he has hit a dead end. He wonders if this was a genuine warning or a calculated attempt to use him to eliminate Professor Lin. As the sun sets, survivors gather around the professor in a residential courtyard. One neighbor expresses gratitude, noting that the heat would have turned uncollected bodies into a health crisis without his intervention. Professor Lin maintains a polite smile, dismissing the praise as simple duty. Watching from a balcony above, our protagonist notices dark stains on the edge of the professor's coat. They resemble dried chemical reagents rather than blood. This sight triggers a flashback to his past life when medical teams appeared shortly after the heat wave began. Under the guise of preventing an epidemic, they collected blood samples from residents. Soon after, the most able-bodied survivors began to vanish. Professor Lin continues to build his public image by pinning a notice to a community board. By offering free water and health checks, he earns a reputation among the neighbors. Later that evening, the professor follows a tracking signal into a dark alley, only to find a cat eating from a tin can. As he reaches down, he discovers the tracking device attached to its fur and realizes he was outsmarted. This discovery triggers a surge of frustration, which our boy harvests while watching from behind a nearby stall. The action moves to an underground parking lot serving as a health check station. While residents complain about the heat, Professor Lin and his assistant begin their exams. Our protagonist blends into the shadows, watching as the doctor draws blood from an elderly man. When the man questions the procedure, the professor claims it is a routine screening. The calm breaks when three men approach in a panic. One of them, Abu, has a heavily infected arm. To treat him, Lin produces a vial labeled T7, describing it as an enhancer that accelerates healing. He injects the solution into the arm and assures the man he will be fine. While the group feels relieved, Chen Xiao notices the professor closely observing the patient's reaction. Later that night, the situation takes a horrific turn as Abu walks through the streets with his friends. He suddenly collapses, screaming that his bones feel like they are burning. Within seconds, thick veins appear across his skin, and his eyes change as energy erupts from his body. In this mutated state, Abu grabs his former leader, Zhang Qiang, by the throat. He mocks the man for using him as a human shield in the past. With a powerful strike, the mutated Abu sends his former friend crashing into the pavement. Sensing another presence, he turns toward the shadows and spots our hero, who stands calmly in his hoodie, facing him. After the mutation takes hold, the transformed Abu charges with high speed. Chen Xiao performs a fluid sidestep, allowing the brute to sail past him without landing a blow. Watching the mutant struggle to change direction, our protagonist realizes that while the man's strength has tripled, his movements are rigid and linear. This observation confirms the reaction is not normal. Our hero decides to conclude the fight immediately. With a swift motion, he unleashes a spatial rend. A sharp arc of energy cuts through the air and sends Abu tumbling into the shadows to collapse on the pavement. While our boy stands over the motionless body, Professor Lin Guodong walks through a nearby quiet alleyway. He stares at a handheld tablet, frustrated that the locator in his serum has stopped transmitting a steady signal. He stops abruptly when he finds the corpse of his test subject and the injured Zhang Qiang lying in the street. The professor kneels to inspect the body, deducing that while the T7 prototype caused neural collapse, it was not the direct cause of death. He examines a precise gash on the neck that matches the incisions found on Liu Haifeng and previous door locks. Lin realizes he is dealing with someone who can carve through matter without external gear. He confirms that Chen Xiao is the anomaly he has been seeking. Searching for more information, the professor finds Zhang Qiang coughing up blood against a nearby wall. Masking his intentions with an air of concern, he kneels beside the man. Lin shows the survivor a photo of our protagonist on his tablet, claiming he wants to prevent further harm. Terrified, Zhang identifies Chen's location in exchange for help. The professor has the injured man moved into a sterile laboratory. When Zhang expresses concern about his friend's mutation, the doctor dismisses it as a rare rejection. Sensing danger, the survivor begs for antibiotics and to return home, but the professor informs Zhang that he needs to be quiet for the sake of science. The man is forced into a dark room as the heavy metal doors of the quarantine center slam shut. Back at the fortress, our hero reclines in the dark while mentally reviewing his plans. His peace is interrupted by a chime at the door. When he checks his security monitor, he sees Professor Lin standing outside with a polite expression. Professor Lin apologizes for the intrusion, noting that the overcast sky has obscured the stars on a stifling night. The doors open into a foyer where Chen Xiao stands in the center of the room. Dressed casually, our protagonist meets the professor's gaze with a neutral expression and asks why he is visiting so late. While Lin remains standing and claims he merely came to check on him, our boy realizes the doctor tracked him down sooner than predicted. Since the man delivered himself to the doorstep, our hero decides to see what game is being played. The professor scans the room, noting the unique, luxurious interior. He sits on a sofa and examines the reinforced features, pointing out that thermal glass and a water filtration system are not standard. To him, the residence appears to be a doomsday safe house. This observation leads him to look at Chen, suspiciously asking if he knew the thermal apocalypse was coming. Chen Xiao offers a dismissive smile, claiming he simply bought a renovation package during a sale. The atmosphere turns serious as the professor shifts the topic to the deaths of Abu and Liu Haifeng. He explains that he examined both corpses and found the cervical vertebrae were severed with precision. Because even military weaponry struggles to achieve such results, he suggests the acts are the work of a specialized individual. Our hero mocks the gravity of the situation by making a prayer-like gesture and asking for a recommendation for a blade supplier, explaining he needs a better knife to cut steak in the heat. This response triggers a surge of speechlessness from the professor, but the scientist quickly recovers. He insists that both victims died at the hands of someone with specialized skills. Our protagonist's expression shifts as he suggests the men were unlucky for provoking something they shouldn't have. He continues to play the part of an average person, asking why the doctor would bring a medical kit in the middle of the night if he didn't think Chen was ill. Eventually, our boy asks how the professor found his address. Lin places his smartphone on the table, showing a photo of Zhang Qiang. A monitor view reveals the gang member is currently hooked up to sensors and an oxygen mask. While the professor claims he is saving the man's life, our hero is visibly tense. He knows that falling into the hands of this doctor likely means the man is suffering. Professor Lin explains that Zhang is adapting to a therapy meant to help the human body evolve in high temperatures. This confirms the suspicion that the doctor is conducting human experiments. The reality of this evolution is shown as Zhang Qiang's body ripples with muscle and fangs emerge. A system interface highlights that the mutation rate has hit a critical 37%. The professor then presents a syringe filled with blue liquid, calling it an immune booster with no side effects. Chen Xiu remains skeptical, jokingly asking if it tastes like blueberry soda, which results in another surge of points from the doctor's speechlessness. Lin ignores the humor and argues that since the survival rate for humans is less than 10%, our protagonist should collaborate to find the key to adaptation. Our boy asks if this means evolving like Zhang did, which the professor dismisses as a necessary sacrifice for scientific progress. When asked what happens if he refuses, the professor remains calm, stating there is no need to answer immediately. He believes that as infection and mutated organisms descend upon the city, our hero will eventually realize this technology is the only path to survival. He leaves the serum on the table and departs. Internally, the professor is impressed by Chen's resilience, but he views him as a live specimen more valuable than simple data. Left alone, our hero looks down at the blue syringe. He views the professor as a deceptive individual who masks human experiments with scientific language. Because he knows he will never have peace while the scientist is hunting him, Chen Xiao decides that since the man is keen on studying evolution, he will show him the true version. In Professor Lin's lab, Zhang Qiang's forced mutation is complete. Transformed into a predator with veined skin and slit pupils, he has lost all sanity. Watching from the monitors, Lin is satisfied. He believes intense negative emotions were the key to the procedure's success. The scientist immediately deploys the creature to capture Chen Xiao alive. While Lin focuses on this breakthrough, Su Rui stands nearby, questioning if turning people into monsters is the path to human evolution. Lin dismisses her moral concerns, arguing that ethics are a luxury, and this sacrifice ensures survival for others. Impatient for results, the professor presses a button on the control panel, triggering a surge in Zhang Qiang's body that causes him to roar and leap into the night. Under the light of a full moon, the mutant leaps between high-rise buildings until he lands in a city courtyard to track the target. Our protagonist is not caught off guard. He leans against a tree as the monster arrives. Rather than showing fear, our hero mocks the creature's appearance, asking if he should call him Fido. This disrespect triggers a 1,000-point rage notification. Our boy realizes that because the beast's emotions are intense, harvesting efficiency has increased by 30%. To avoid damaging the safe house or waking neighbors, he leads the monster toward a secluded underground parking garage. Once they reach level B2, the battle begins. Chen Xiao swings his arm to test his spatial rend, but the energy arc bounces off Zhang Qiang's arm. The mutation has made the hide thick, leaving the beast unscathed. Realizing he needs to push the target further, our protagonist continues to taunt the attacker, calling him a moron and suggesting the professor has no taste. He even mockingly offers to introduce the mutant to a stylist. These insults drive the monster into a frenzy, generating 2,000 rage points and causing the mutation to spiral. Our protagonist watches as the creature's back warps. Jagged bone spikes erupt from his shoulders and spine in a stage 2 transformation. Before our hero can adjust his strategy, the monster lunges, striking him in the torso and sending him across the garage. As he skids to a halt, Chen Xiao realizes he has been punctured by the bone spikes, leaving him bleeding on the pavement. In the lab, Lin is ecstatic. He orders Su Rui to record the data as he witnesses this spontaneous evolution. While the scientist celebrates, his assistant looks on with horror. In the garage, the situation turns dire as the bone-spiked monster roars at our hero, who falls to one knee. The confrontation in the parking garage reaches a fever pitch as the mutated Zhang Qiang fixates on his target. Stripped of his humanity, the mutant becomes a blur of energy and crashes into Chen Xiao. The impact is devastating, sending our boy flying across the concrete. While clutching a painful chest wound, our hero remains analytically focused. A system notification warns him that his spatial rend is at 87%, while the monster's energy levels continue to climb. Instead of retreating, our protagonist doubles down on his strategy. He stands and wipes blood from his lip, choosing psychological warfare to bridge the gap. He mockingly asks if the extra bones turned the beast into a hedgehog, reminding the former thug he had more guts as a street criminal. As Chen labels him a dog acting on Professor Lin's command, the system harvests a staggering surge of rage and humiliation points. In the laboratory, the scientist watches the feed, noting that the bone density of the creature has increased by another 5% due to the emotional output. The professor encourages the mutant to push past his limits, triggering a Stage 2 evolution. Zhang Qiang releases a shockwave of energy and fires a barrage of bone spikes. Our protagonist remains calm as the projectiles embed themselves in the walls. By intentionally provoking this outburst, Chen Xiao pushes the negative emotion count to the 30,000 cap. This milestone allows him to trigger an immediate skill evolution: Spatial Rift, Annihilation. Blue energy surges as ethereal chains appear around him. Our hero points a finger at the charging beast as a void forms at his fingertip. The resulting blast erases a portion of the target's existence. Zhang Qiang falls into shock as his left arm and part of his torso vanish into the black void. As the mutant collapses, our boy looks down with indifference. To send a message to the architect of this chaos, he rips the camera collar from the mutant's neck. He stares into the lens, suggesting the test subject was insufficient and daring the doctor to send a real fighter next time. The screen glitches into static, but the professor reacts with laughter, obsessed with capturing such a specimen. Back in the garage, our hero prepares to settle the final debt. He places a hand on the head of the broken creature and offers a final mercy as the light leaves the mutant's eyes. The peace is short-lived as the sound of clapping echoes through the garage, and a man in a teal suit steps from the shadows. Chen Xiao spots a blonde man named Chen Shixing stepping from the shadows. The stranger dabs his mouth with a handkerchief while commenting on the pungent stench of death. Our hero watches him suspiciously as the man suggests this era of despair is a time for gods to rise. This cryptic talk forces our boy to prepare for another fight, white spatial energy swirling between his fingers. The man in the suit remains unfazed, seemingly impressed by the destructive power displayed. He clarifies that Chen Xiao is clearly not one of the defective products created by Professor Lin Guodong. Mentioning the professor triggers our protagonist's guard, and he demands to know if the two are accomplices. Chen Shixing claims to be the opposite, a protector trying to stop further tragedies. He reveals he was the anonymous sender who warned our hero about the doctor earlier. When Chen Xiao asks how a stranger obtained his private number, the man holds up a black card embossed with a DNA helix and a ship. He introduces himself as a representative of ARC, a powerful organization with an extensive intelligence network. He explains that in this era, awakeners appear much earlier than in the past. He contrasts ARC's methods with the experiments of Lin Guodong, claiming his group offers a true evolution that preserves sanity. He paints a picture of an elite group destined to survive the coming upheaval, offering our boy a path to transcend mortality. Our protagonist is not moved by the speech. To him, this path to godhood sounds like the rambling of a cultist. Before the man can finish, our hero moves suddenly. A purple energy slash cuts through the air, slicing the ARC business card out of the man's hand. Chen mockingly claims his hand slipped before turning his back. He rejects anyone trying to dictate his life, whether they are scientists or self-righteous elites. Our boy flatly rejects the offer, making it clear he works alone and has no interest in joining any factions. This blunt rejection turns Chen Shixing's reaction into intrigue. As the man vanishes into a portal, he leaves a final warning that a lone wolf will not last long in a crumbling world, reminding our hero that the doors to ARC remain open. Once the man is gone, our protagonist checks his system interface. He finds that despite the man's cool exterior, he still generated a significant haul of negative emotion points, including disdain and wariness. This harvest fuels his confidence. He intends to shatter any limits to his strength. With the representative gone, Chen Xiao's expression turns serious. There is one major loose end to tie up, and it is finally time to head to the lab to settle the score with Lin Guodong. Our hero arrives at a weathered industrial building, its windows masked by old newspapers to hide the dark secrets within. Because he needs to get inside, the protagonist snaps his fingers to summon sparks of spatial energy. This creates a jagged purple rift, allowing our boy to bypass the heavy metal doors and vanish directly into the structure. Once inside, the protagonist finds himself in a dark laboratory. The room is filled with rows of bubbling incubation tanks containing pale, fetal-like mutations. As our boy walks down the aisle, he stops to inspect a blackened, withered test subject. Seeing these biological horrors fills him with deep contempt as he realizes this is the true extent of Professor Lin Guodong's twisted scientific vision. The sight is so sickening that Chen Xiao decides the entire facility needs to be burned to the ground. Suddenly, Professor Lin emerges from the shadows, revealing that he expected Chen Xiao to show up due to his belief that a perfect specimen could never be happy with an ordinary life. Even though Zhang Qiang failed to stop our hero, the professor views that defeat as a success since it paved the way for this meeting. He He then has the nerve to ask if the young mage is finally ready to sacrifice himself for the sake of human evolution. Our hero responds with a look of pure loathing, calling the man disgusting. This prompts the professor to go on a manic rant, mocking his rivals and calling them hypocrites. He argues that every major leap in human progress requires wading through rivers of blood. He views the protagonist's power as a heaven-sent treasure that shouldn't be wasted on normal people. Chen Xiao is completely unimpressed by this speech and begins picking his ear with his pinky finger. He flatly explains that he doesn't give a damn about human progress. The protagonist's patience has reached its limit. He doesn't care about the experiments, but he is furious that the professor's schemes have ruined his peace and quiet. As a result, our boy raises his hand and forms a swirling spatial orb, intending to erase the scientist from existence. However, Professor Lin remains unfazed and pulls out a remote. He mockingly points out that the hero must be low on stamina after his previous fight, and suggests he should just submit to avoid further pain. When Chen Xiao defiantly refuses, the professor presses the button on his remote. This triggers an explosion that shatters the glass tanks, raining liquid and debris everywhere. From the wreckage, 3 muscular, mutated humanoids with fangs and bone protrusions emerge. These monsters lunge at our guy from all sides, forcing him to defend himself. He unleashes powerful spatial energy tendrils and a massive rift that slices through the first monster's torso, sending blood splattering across the floor. While the fight rages, the professor stands in the background shouting with manic glee, urging the hero to stay so he can be made even stronger. Chen Xiao simply smiles at the idea that these mindless freaks could stop him. Even though his stamina is fading and he knows he needs to end this quickly, he leaps forward in sudden motion. He performs a high-speed spinning slash that tears through the monsters and the surrounding machinery. Breathing heavily, the protagonist lands in a crouch and slowly stands up among the bodies of the fallen creatures. He walks toward the trembling professor, mocking him for thinking 3 monsters would be enough to keep him there. He tells the scientist that his long life has been a waste and prepares to end it. Professor Lin falls to his knees, coughing up blood, but he manages a final chilling laugh. He reveals that it doesn't matter if he dies, given that he has already transmitted the data for his mutation serum. According to him, the seeds of chaos have been sown, and the world is about to become much more dangerous. As the scientist dies, Su Rui interrupts, warning the hero that he is too injured to even make it home. Suspicious, Chen Xiao asks if she is the professor's assistant. Su Rui steps in holding a medical case. She claims she means no harm and offers him a small blue vial. This recovery serum is meant to stabilize his wounds and stop the bleeding. Since the facility was owned by the late Professor Lin, Chen Xiao remains deeply suspicious and questions why she would conveniently appear with a cure just as her mentor dropped dead. Su Rui understands his doubt, but explains that there is something else in the building he needs, prompting the young mage to follow her deeper into the structure. She leads him to a massive hidden storage room overflowing with crates of water and medical supplies. Su Rui reveals that the professor had been hoarding these essentials as he was secretly terrified of the rising heat wave, despite his public claims of scientific selflessness. Since she plans to leave the facility forever to seek a real cure at a northern research station, she offers everything to the protagonist as a way of apologizing for the professor's horrific human experiments. Our hero watches her vanish into a bright hallway, and while he respects her resolve, he is much more interested in the hoard she left behind. As the inventory is packed with valuable antibiotics and water purification tablets, Chen Xiao uses his spatial energy to open a portal and claim every single item for himself. Once the room is stripped bare, he decides there is no reason to leave the evidence of Lin's crimes standing, so he triggers a massive explosion that levels the entire industrial building. Back at his safe house, the protagonist checks his thermostat and realizes the outdoor temperature has climbed past a lethal 58 degrees Celsius. This extreme heat has caused a global catastrophe, melting the permafrost and trapping the world in an irreversible greenhouse cycle that is killing off the population. Our boy looks at his system panel and discovers he lacks the negative emotion points needed to upgrade his spatial storage. Given that he needs to increase his strength to survive the worsening climate, he contacts a black market dealer named Mu Chang to arrange a trade. He realizes that now that water has become a hard currency, he can use his massive supply to squeeze emotion tax out of desperate survivors. Later that night, the two meet in a secluded alleyway to conduct business. When a desperate neighbor approaches to trade some goods for water, our hero decides to be intentionally difficult. Even though the man's items are worth 2 bottles, Chen Xiao coldly offers only 1. When the neighbor becomes visibly angry, the protagonist pushes further, forcing the man to call him a saint just to finalize the deal. This manipulation successfully harvests a burst of rage and humiliation from the man, which fuels the hero's power. As the protagonist heads back, he encounters Grandpa Wang, who is heading out in the heat to deliver water to a struggling neighbor named Auntie Yun. Chen Xiao warns the old man to prioritize his own survival in such a brutal world, but the kind-hearted grandfather insists on helping a suffering child. Unfortunately, this kindness is wasted. As soon as Grandpa Wang leaves, Auntie Yun reveals her true, greedy nature, mocking the old man for bringing such a small amount. Instead of using the water for a child, she takes the bottle to a dark, decrepit building and hands it over to a man in a lab coat named Mr. Zhao, referring to the water as a daily tribute. Later, Mu Chang stands in the dark alleyway at night and stares at his smartphone with deep concern since something feels wrong. When he checks his screen, he sees a string of canceled deals from his contacts. Our hero is sitting on the floor nearby and realizes this is the third cancellation in a row. Mu Chang turns to him and explains that it isn't just a coincidence, as it feels like their business partners are being targeted. A sudden clatter echoes through the alley as a group of men in casual clothes appears. Their leader points aggressively at our protagonist to identify him. Chen Xiao looks up from his water bottle with a calm gaze, given that he is completely unfazed by the intruders. He asks if they are looking for him, which prompts the group to move closer. The lead thug shouts that the young maid shouldn't be selling water in private, while his companion looms over our boy and accuses him of getting people hooked on vile commercial water. They claim his sins are grave, but our hero simply smiles and asks if they drink their own waste instead. This insult triggers a burst of humiliation from the thugs that fuels his system. A man with a goatee steps forward and identifies the group as disciples of the Pure Water sect. He claims that the water hoarded by the masses bleeds the earth dry, and that only the water purified by their leader, Lord Zhao Qian, can prevent sin. Chen Xiao looks at him with a confused expression as the goatee man raises his arms to the sky. The man rants that the global heatwave is divine punishment for plundering the earth, and that only Lord Zhao allows for divine forgiveness. He demands that our boy hand over his water as an offering or face impending doom. Our protagonist realizes this is just a bunch of spineless cowards who have fallen for a cult. The thugs react with shock, but the goatee man tells Chen Xiao that he will eventually kneel in worship once he witnesses their leader's miracles. Mu Tang watches the religious nutjobs with a look of pure disgust. To provoke them, our hero unscrews his bottle and begins to drink, purposely letting the water spill onto the ground. He mocks their claims of heaven's wrath, which causes the cultists to explode with anger and speechlessness. Chen Xiao decides to turn the situation into a game by offering a bucket of water to the first person who curses Zhao Qian. Even though the goatee man screams about blasphemy, the thugs behind him begin to hesitate as they are desperate for a drink. When our hero confirms his word is his bond, the tension snaps. One of the thugs screams an insult at his leader, causing the goatee man to turn on his own men in a panic. Total chaos erupts as the thugs start brawling with one another to secure the promised water. Chen Xiao and Mu Chang watch the fight with bored expressions until the thugs eventually retreat into the darkness. Mu Chang is relieved that they didn't make a move on our hero, but Chen knows it isn't that simple. He understands that if they keep interfering with his business, he will have to tear them out by the roots. The scene shifts to a city street littered with cult posters claiming that doomsday is near. Our boy arrives at a dark Gothic cathedral under a giant moon, now that he knows that using violence would cause a public backlash. He wants to maintain a good reputation so he can keep harvesting negative emotions from the public. He peeks through a broken Gothic window to observe the interior and find out who Zhao Qian really is. Inside the cathedral, Zhao sits on an ornate throne. An unconscious woman lies on the carpet at his feet. Zhao Qian tells the watching cultists to observe closely as he slowly pours a bottle of water over the woman's head and chest. As the water hits her face, she gasps for air and wakes up. The cultists in the pews cheer and weep with gratitude due to their belief a few drops of water cured her heat stroke. While they pledge their eternal loyalty, Chen Xiao watches from the window with a suspicious look. He wonders if the woman is simply a paid actor or if Zhao Qian is actually a fellow awakener with special powers. Inside the cathedral, the woman who had seemingly been cured of heat stroke kneels before the altar in a state of emotional desperation. She begs to serve Lord Zhao Qian as a way to repay him for saving her life, but the cult leader maintains a holy and distant persona. He assures her that the gods recognize every offering made while simultaneously warning the crowd that the current global heatwave is actually a divine culling meant to punish the greedy. According to him, survival is reserved only for those who place their absolute faith in his leadership. He then instructs the gathered men to hand over their unclean water supplies, promising that he will purify them on behalf of the gods. Our protagonist stands at the back of this crowd, where he is immediately spotted by the same thugs he humiliated in the alleyway. They react with hostility, shouting that a heretic like him has no business entering their sacred space. However, Chen Xiao quickly shifts gears and puts on a dramatic act of repentance. He presses his palms together and cries out that he was blind to the truth, claiming that the rising heat and water scarcity have finally terrified him into submission. To sell the performance, our boy drops to his knees and bows low before Zhao Qian, begging for salvation and offering up all of his supposedly unclean possessions. When the young mage looks up, he reveals a massive horde of blue water containers stacked behind him. The sight leaves the cultists in a state of absolute shock due to the sheer volume of the resource. Zhao Qian eyes the protagonist through his glasses, acknowledging his heavy sins but deciding to play the role of the forgiving shepherd. He tells the young man that the gods are willing to give a lost lamb another chance since he is turning over a new leaf. While he remains in a submissive kneeling position, our hero is actually observing the scam with cold calculation. He realizes that Zhao Qian is simply confiscating everyone's water and returning only the bare minimum to keep them dependent, and he doubts many of these followers will even survive the month. The scene is suddenly interrupted by a man who rushes in to tell Auntie Yun that her granddaughter has collapsed from heat stroke. Auntie Yun is confused as she had been giving the child the cult's holy water, but Chen Xiao recognizes her from the shadows. He realizes that the woman had previously lied to Grandpa Wang about the child being sick just to steal his water. Now facing a real crisis, Auntie Yun throws herself at the leader's feet and offers double the tribute to save the girl. Zhao Qian responds with total indifference, coldly explaining that the gods are not babysitters. He tells her that if the water didn't work, it is simply as she isn't devout enough. He dismisses her despair and announces to the entire congregation that he will perform a true miracle at high noon the following day. As the leader walks away, the goatee man approaches our hero and hands him a white armband featuring the sex logo. He tells the protagonist to wear it as a symbol of his new membership and warns him to never forget the weight of his past sins. Chen Xiao fastens the band to his arm with a submissive look, but as soon as he turns away, his face shifts into a mocking sneer. He knows these people are fools given that he has already hidden trackers on the water jugs he handed over. Following the trail, our boy navigates a dark corridor within the facility and uses his spatial energy to bypass a locked door. Inside, he finds a secret storage room packed with premium food and expensive beverages, confirming that the holy water was just a front for Zhao Qian to hoard luxuries. While hiding among the shelves, our hero watches as the leader enters with the brown-haired woman from the earlier ceremony. The woman looks pale and exhausted, but instead of showing her compassion, Zhao Qian violently slaps her across the face. He berates her for looking sickly, demanding that she play her part better so the public continues to believe in his miracles. The woman falls to the floor and tries to explain that using her ability drains too much of her stamina, but Zhao Qian dismisses her as useless trash. Watching this unfold from the shadows, the young mage realizes that the woman is the actual person with supernatural powers, not the leader. This discovery causes a dark smile to spread across the protagonist's face, now that he is beginning to form a new plan to exploit the situation. Since Auntie Yun's granddaughter is suffering from heat stroke, Chen Xiao infiltrates an apartment building under the cover of a foggy night. Our hero enters the girl's bedroom, standing over her as she sleeps. To ensure her recovery, the young boy tosses bottles of water onto her bed. This sudden intrusion causes the girl to wake up in a state of terror, questioning who he is. Our boy doesn't offer a direct introduction, instead crouching by the window and coldly telling her to drink the water and survive the night if she wants her answers. The following day at high noon, a massive crowd gathers in the sun-drenched plaza outside the cathedral for a promised miracle. Zhao Qian sits on a stage, using a fiery solar aura to convince the cultists that his divinity protects him from the 58°C heat. This display successfully deceives followers like Auntie Yun, who watches with tears of awe. However, our protagonist stands in the crowd with a cynical expression, as he has already figured out the scam. He realizes the cult leader is simply exploiting the ability of the young female awakener standing behind him. As the girl uses her energy to maintain the illusion of heat resistance, Chen Xiao decides to test a theory. He focuses his spatial power, wondering if his energy can physically sever the connection of her ability. Due to this spatial interference, the girl suddenly finds herself unable to project her power onto Zhao Qian. This causes the cult leader to panic as the actual heat of the sun begins to cook him, leading him to grit his teeth and demand to know what is happening. The girl looks around in dread, realizing that someone in the shadows is blocking her reach. Despite her internal struggle, a desperate Zhao Qian whispers for her to get closer and maintain the miracle at any cost. Our boy watches this play out from the crowd and makes eye contact with her, flashing a knowing smile. The girl hesitates as she knows her own physical limits would prevent her from surviving long in the direct sunlight of the plaza. At this moment, the girl remembers a terrifying vision of red eyes and a note left by Chen Xiao, which explained his intent to kill the leader and seize the territory. Realizing she has a chance to switch sides, her expression hardens with determination. She ignores Zhao Qian's screams and insults, turning her back on the stage to walk toward our hero. Once she reaches him, she wraps her arms around his waist to signal her new loyalty. Our protagonist is amused by how quickly she changed her tune, but the girl immediately reveals the true nature of her power. She explains that her ability is called forced heat dissipation, which normally moves internal body heat to the surface. Strangely, the situation takes a dangerous turn for the young mage. The girl reveals a much more lethal application of her gift that targets only the head and heart. By instantaneously extracting heat from these vital areas, she can cause a sudden plunge in blood supply to the brain. As she is currently touching him, she activates this effect on our boy. This forced physiological shift causes Chen Xiao's vision to blur and his head to spin. As the girl's eyes glow with a sinister red intensity, our hero realizes too late that he has been caught off guard by a powerful and unexpected counterattack. The story takes a brief step back into the past to reveal the tragic origins of the young awakener, Lin Jing. In a sunlit alleyway, the brown-haired woman is shown weeping as she desperately tries to keep a dying cat alive. This moment of grief is interrupted by a man shouting from a balcony, demanding she return to him. The memory then shifts to a darker setting where this same man violently attacks her, dragging her by the hair while complaining about the burden of raising her. He reveals his true, predatory nature by demanding she sell herself to strangers just to bring back water for him. While Lin Jing struggles in his grip, the apartment door opens to reveal Zhao Qian and two of his enforcers. Zhao Qian watches the abuse with a look of cold disgust before his men strike the abuser, leaving him bleeding against the wall. Instead of acting out of pure kindness, however, the cult leader reveals his ulterior motive. He tells the trembling girl that he witnessed her perform a miracle by bringing the dead cat back to life. He flashes a warm smile, claiming her power is a gift from the gods and inviting her to join him to save more souls. Returning to the present day at the plaza, the situation has turned dire for our hero. Two cultists have forced Chen Xiao to his knees, mocking him for his perceived disrespect toward their leader. This temporary submission is short-lived, as the young mage's eyes narrow with lethal intent. In a sudden explosion of movement, our boy summons a jagged arc of spatial energy that slashes through the air. The strike is so precise and powerful that it sends blood spraying across the scene, instantly taking down the thug holding him. As the protagonist stands up, the surrounding crowd of neighbors and cultists recoils in absolute horror, labeling him a demon. Our hero remains completely unfazed by their fear and looks back at the cowering Zhao Qian with a gaze of pure contempt. He explains to the terrified onlookers that these so-called holy men were nothing more than common criminals long before the world ended, specializing in arson and extortion. He tells the neighbors that their blind faith in such obvious scum makes them a lost cause. At this moment, Mu Chang arrives and hands the protagonist a thick stack of intel confirming the group's criminal history. This revelation causes a stir in the crowd, particularly for Auntie Yun. She is stunned to see her granddaughter Ailing running toward her in perfect health. Auntie Yun initially tries to credit Zhao Qian for this recovery, claiming her prayers saved the child and urging the crowd to take down the demon Chen Xiao. However, the young girl looks at her grandmother and the neighbors with utter disbelief, questioning if they have lost their minds. Ailing steps forward to defend our protagonist, pointing directly at him and revealing the truth. She explains that the cultist they worship did nothing for her. Instead, it was the big brother standing before them who secretly visited her the previous night. A flashback confirms that our boy sat on her windowsill and provided her with an electrolyte drink that stabilized her condition. Ailing shouts at the crowd, making it clear that she would have died if she had relied on their superstitions instead of his actual help. The tension reaches a breaking point when Lin Jing suddenly collapses onto the pavement. Because she is no longer providing his protection, Zhao Qian snaps and enters a manic rage. He pulls out a handgun and aims it at the fallen girl and our hero, calling them useless trash. He fires a shot, but the bullet never reaches its target. To the cult leader's shock, Chen Xiao catches the projectile in a swirling disc of spatial energy. Our protagonist examines the trapped bullet with a bored expression, casually noting that it might be worth something later. Realizing his gun is useless, Zhao Qian reveals his final trump card. He pulls out a blue syringe and injects himself with a serum, which our hero immediately recognizes as the twisted work of Professor Lin. Because of the drug, the cult leader undergoes a horrific transformation, his body swelling into a hulking, muscular giant. He lunges at the young mage with incredible speed, laughing about his new immune booster. The fight becomes physical as the mutated Zhao Qian catches our boy in a powerful bear hug. In a desperate suicide move, the giant leaps off the high balcony, intending to drag the protagonist down to the stone plaza with him. As they plummet, Zhao Qian screams about his bitter past, revealing he was once a struggling student whose research was stolen by academic elites. He views the global catastrophe as the only thing that leveled the playing field for him, and blames our hero for ruining his newfound power. Our protagonist remains entirely calm despite the high-speed fall, telling the man he is simply too loud. Just as they are about to hit the ground, a system prompt appears, signaling that our hero has unlocked a new ability called Spatial Blink. His body flickers and vanishes into thin air, leaving Zhao Qian's arms empty. The the mutated cult leader crashes into the plaza fountain with a lethal impact, creating a splash of blood. Standing safely nearby, Chen Xiao looks down at the wreckage of his enemy, noting that the man's only real mistake was crossing his path. The plaza falls into a suffocating silence following Zhao Qian's violent end. Chen Xiao stands cold and detached, his spatial powers striking such terror into the surviving cultists that they decry him as a practitioner of dark witchcraft. Ignoring their frantic screams, he focuses solely on the unconscious Lin Jing. A quick assessment reveals she is physically unharmed. She has simply collapsed from the sheer shock of the battle and the total exhaustion of her abilities. To assist her, the young mage opens a swirling portal and reaches into the void to retrieve a bottle of water. This act of mercy triggers a wave of fury from the remaining cult members, particularly Auntie Yun. She points at the fallen girl with a face twisted by grief, screaming that Lin Jing is a wretched monster who must have bewitched their leader into his tragic end. When the crowd attempts to block his path, the protagonist reacts with lethal red eyes as he issues a final warning for everyone to get out of his way. Unfortunately, the elder cultist refuses to back down. He attempts to rally his followers to surround our hero, demanding that they purify the young man's soul with hymns of praise. The cultists join hands to form a fanatical circle, chanting and singing with intense devotion to their fallen god. Chen Xiao finds this display of mindless worship irritating. To end the nonsense, he unleashes a massive spatial shockwave that violently blasts the cultists back, leaving the area splattered with blood. Once the area is cleared, our protagonist crouches beside a newly awakened Lin Jing. He hands her the water and flatly tells her that she needs to drink if she wants to survive her current state of weakness. Dazed by the destruction, the girl asks about Zhao Qian's whereabouts, only for Chen Xiao to bluntly inform her that the man is dead. He even offers her a chance to see the body one last time, though the reality of the situation is interrupted by Ailing, who comes running toward the plaza shouting for her grandmother. Auntie Yun, however, has reached a total mental breaking point. Because she realizes that her faith was built on a lie and that there are no gods coming to save her, she feels she has nothing left to rely on. In a state of absolute despair, she chooses to end her life by jumping from a balcony. Even though Ailing is devastated by the sight, the young girl shows a surprising amount of resolve. While hugging our hero, she explains that she refuses to be like her grandmother, who gave up on life and her own family for the sake of ignorant beliefs. Ailing declares her intention to survive the heat wave no matter what. Later that evening at the luxury safe house, Lin Jing reflects on her complicated history with the cult leader. She admits that she once viewed Zhao Qian as a savior, but she eventually realized he was only exploiting her powers out of a mix of terror and jealousy. The protagonist points out that the man was a pathetic failure who could never break into elite circles before the apocalypse and failed to become an awakener after it, leaving him to die full of resentment. Although Lin Jing feels guilty for becoming an accomplice to his crimes, she is genuinely grateful to the young mage for her freedom. Ailing adds a lighter note to the somber mood by questioning why the cultist would shoot someone as pretty as Lin Jing, leading the girl to wonder if the rumors were true and the leader was actually uninterested in women. Now that the cult is dismantled, Chen Xiao turns his focus toward long-term survival. He overlooks the survivors gathered in the plaza, calculating his next move. Even though he has the power to claim the entire stockpile of hoarded water for himself, he decides that establishing control over the district is more beneficial. He addresses the crowd with authority, promising to share the water supplies as long as they follow his strict orders. While his associate Mu Chang watches with deep suspicion, our boy maintains a knowing smile, already executing a plan to expand his influence. The protagonist begins to formalize his power by sealing off the apartment building with official warning signs. Inside the property office, he forces the current management to sign over the entire structure through a property transfer agreement in exchange for water. Mu Chang is shocked by the sheer scale of the move, but Chen Xiao is completely unapologetic. He explains that having a single floor is no longer sufficient for his needs. Instead, he intends to transform the entire building into a massive, impenetrable doomsday fortress. In his past life, Chen Xiao witnessed the world crumble as temperatures reached a catastrophic 56 degrees C, with the surface heat soaring to 78 degrees C. Since he remembers the dawning horror of watching skyscrapers tilt and collapse under extreme thermal stress, he knows exactly how precarious their current situation is. He understands that while things are bad now, the second heat wave will be far more brutal, eventually softening steel rebar and causing high-rises to drop like stones. That is why our hero has taken the initiative to secure property contracts and legal documents for his entire building. Luckily, the remaining residents trusted his judgment and agreed to vacate, allowing him to begin the necessary renovations to reinforce the structure against the coming apocalypse. On the television, a news anchor suggests that the current 30-day heat wave might be receding, though she warns that temperatures may rebound. Our protagonist can't help but smirk at her use of the word maybe, as he knows for a fact that the worst is yet to come. Still, as the heat has temporarily dipped, the people of Luo City are cautiously stepping outside to enjoy a breath of fresh air for the first time in what feels like forever. Our boy realizes that this brief window of relative comfort is the perfect time to start construction, but he has a few loose ends to tie up within his own safe house first. Inside the apartment, the young mage finds Ailing casually snacking on the sofa and bluntly asks her when she plans on leaving. Instead of being offended, the young girl gives him a mischievous look and asks if he is trying to kick her out. She immediately proves her worth by pointing a finger at a large mosquito and incinerating it with a massive bolt of electricity. Given that generators consume too much fuel and solar panels fail in extreme heat, our protagonist realizes that having a human battery who can generate electricity is a massive strategic advantage. Consequently, he tells her she can stay as long as she likes, prompting the excited girl to run off to check on Lin Jing's move. The hero follows behind, reflecting on how precious Lin Jing's heat dissipation ability is in a world that is literally cooking. He convinced her to move into the building specifically so he could utilize and protect her more effectively. On the way down the stairs, Ailing suddenly realizes she forgot a housewarming gift and bolts back up, leaving Chen Xiao to find Lin Jing's door slightly ajar. When he pushes it open and steps inside, he accidentally walks in on her just as she has finished showering. This leads to a chaotic moment of high blushing panic, where both of them are screaming in embarrassment. Our hero tries to defend himself by asking why the door wasn't locked, only for Lin Jing to angrily point out that he hasn't even given her the keys to her new place yet. Once the initial shock wears off, the young mage stands out in the hallway feeling quite exasperated. He seriously asks Lin Jing if she is sure she won't regret moving in with him, wondering if she is afraid he might turn out to be a monster like Zhao Qian. Leaning against the door from the inside, Lin Jing explains that while she knows he wants to use her power, she believes he is someone who will stick to his moral bottom line, even while pursuing his own interests. Our boy scoffs at the idea, noting that the future is unpredictable, but he accepts her presence nonetheless. Settled in, the group moves to the warehouse to begin the heavy lifting. Lin Jing takes charge of the water redistribution, treating the grueling labor as atonement for her cult past. As the hall is organized, the protagonist and Lin Jing eventually huddle over a tablet. Now a unified team, they begin mapping out their next move while the world outside continues its slow, inevitable collapse. It is now the 7th day since the extreme heat took a temporary break, and a tall apartment building stands under a hazy sky. At the entrance, 2 men act as sentries to monitor who comes and goes. This organized security reflects the new order within the structure. With the temperature drop, the residents on the lower floors have settled into a comfortable routine. On the 2nd floor, Grandpa Wang quietly waters his plants while Lin Jing reviews documents. Moving up to the 3rd floor, Mu Chang and Li Yu enjoy the rare luxury of working air conditioning. Our protagonist has even provided a space for Ailing on the 4th floor, where the young girl spends her time focused on her gaming console. Chen Xiao stands on a high-rise balcony looking down at the courtyard, but his mind is far from relaxed. Although he managed to upgrade the internal circuitry during the cool spell, he realizes that building a true defense system for the entire complex requires resources far beyond what a normal person can find. As his funds are limited, the young mage is forced to consider his next move. His thoughts are interrupted when he spots a group of out-of-town thugs gathered near a car below. Their blue-haired leader has heard rumors about the massive water supply in the building and decides to lead a raid. Since the boss is arrogant and views Luo City as a small prize, he orders his men to simply wreck the place and take what they want. This plan backfires immediately. A short time later, the courtyard is littered with unconscious thugs, while their leader remains on his knees in total defeat. Our boy calmly adjusts his wrist, having used this confrontation as a way to establish dominance. Now that many criminals are currently fleeing across provincial borders to escape the climate shifts, Chen Xiao knows he must be firm. As a result of these displays of power, the local and traveling gangs learn to give his complex a wide berth, allowing the building to remain unusually peaceful as the sun sets. Unfortunately, this peace draws the wrong kind of attention. At the Provisional Government Command Center, a scarred military officer notices that while the rest of Luo City is falling into chaos, one residential complex is suspiciously stable. He remembers that this is the same area where a dangerous cult was recently wiped out, which makes him uneasy. Even though his subordinates argue that they lack the resources to deal with petty gang disputes, the officer follows his gut feeling that something more significant is happening. He reviews CCTV footage from the cathedral and is shocked to see Chen Xiao vanish instantly from the air and reappear unharmed on a rooftop. Recognizing this as a supernatural anomaly, the officer immediately orders a tactical team to investigate the building. Under the cover of night, a squad in green military gear approaches the complex. They are professional and cautious, using a scanning device to detect and reroute an electric grid trap before it can alert the residents. They reach a unit door and use a decryption device to bypass the electronic lock. Once the door is kicked open, 3 soldiers rush into the dark apartment with their rifles drawn, expecting a dangerous combatant. Instead, they find Ailing standing in the middle of the room rubbing her eyes. The little girl is so tired she initially wonders if her video games are causing her to hallucinate. The soldiers are momentarily confused by the presence of a child, but the lead operative decides to subdue her anyway to secure the room. This proves to be a massive mistake. Ailing's expression darkens as she scolds them for their lack of manners in breaking into a private home. Given that she is a powerful awakener, massive arcs of electricity begin to swirl around her. A surge of energy explodes from the 4th floor, lighting up the exterior of the building as she neutralizes the intruders. While she stands over the unconscious soldiers, she feels a slight bit of worry about attacking government personnel, though she quickly figures the rules of the old world no longer apply. The noise eventually draws our hero out from the hallway. Wearing pajamas and looking annoyed by the late-night racket, Chen Xiao's first instinct is to ask Ailing why she hasn't gone back to her own floor yet. However, his annoyance turns to genuine shock when he sees the tactical gear and the state of the soldiers. As Ailing grins at him and points out that they have a serious problem on their hands, the young mage realizes that his quiet life has officially been compromised by the military. Because 30 minutes have passed since contact was lost with the specialized tactical team, the military has completely surrounded our protagonist's apartment building. The lead officer stands atop a tank and uses a megaphone to demand that Chen Xiao surrender his weapons and return the captured personnel. He warns that failure to comply will result in immediate military intervention. Inside the building, the sudden commotion wakes the residents. Mu Tang sits up in his bed and looks out his window in disbelief, realizing that 3 tanks are parked directly in his courtyard. In another room, Lin Jing peeks through her curtains with an expression of deep worry, questioning why the military has arrived in such strength. Even Grandpa Wang looks toward the hall in confusion. Because he wants to ensure their safety, Chen Xiao sends a message to everyone through their devices, telling them to stay in their rooms while he handles the situation personally. Our hero walks out of the building alone to face the military line. He confronts the soldiers and asks them to explain why they felt the need to break into his home in the middle of the night. The officer responds that the military has already analyzed the footage from the cathedral incident and now knows the truth about his abilities. He explains that superpowers are an incredibly rare asset in the current global crisis and offers our boy a deal. If the young mage agrees to become a research subject, the military is willing to forgive the night's conflict. However, our protagonist sees right through this offer. He realizes the officer simply wants to lock him in a laboratory for experimentation and flatly declines the invitation. When the officer drops his polite facade and tries to order him into submission, Chen Xiao informs the man that he does not repeat himself, signaling that negotiations are over. As a result of this defiance, the officer raises his hand and orders his men to open fire. The tanks launch their shells, but our boy remains completely calm. He expands a spherical purple-black spatial barrier around his body, which catches the incoming projectiles mid-air. The soldiers watching from the sidelines are paralyzed with shock as they witness their heavy weaponry being rendered useless. To show the true scale of his strength, Chen Xiao reaches his hand toward the sky and creates a dark, swirling spatial rift. He tells the soldiers they can have their weapons back before the rift consumes a helicopter and several missiles, triggering a massive explosion that lights up the night sky. The officer is forced to shield his face from the blast and looks up in a daze, stunned by the sheer level of power the protagonist possesses. Our hero stands as a dark silhouette in the purple aura and warns the commander that his next attack will be aimed directly at the troops. Realizing they are outmatched, the officer finally concedes. However, he delivers a grim warning based on the latest meteorological reports, explaining that the recent heat wave was merely a precursor to a much more devastating event. He looks at the young mage with a desperate expression and argues that the survival of humanity might actually depend on people with his power. Our hero remains unperturbed by this appeal to heroism. He explains that he is no saint and has no interest in being a savior. His only concern is eliminating anyone who disturbs his peace. He points out that the world is about to descend into complete lawlessness, meaning he no longer fears military authority. Despite his cold demeanor, he offers a small opening by suggesting he might help if they are willing to make a deal. The officer is so desperate for assistance that he agrees to almost any terms. Consequently, Chen Xiao reveals his true objective. He demands that the officer mobilize all available military resources and engineering power to transform his entire apartment building into a massive, impenetrable doomsday fortress. The very next day, a formation of military tanks and armored vehicles rolls into the courtyard of the residential complex to begin the promised work. A heavy green military truck equipped with antennae passes the apartment building as the project kicks off. The scarred military officer stands in the courtyard to address Chen Xiao and Li Yuyu, flanked by medical personnel. He explains that construction starts immediately, but because some of the installations involve classified military technology, they will prefabricate the core modules at their base and transport them to the site for final assembly. Our protagonist looks at the officer with his signature red eyes and gives the green light without hesitation. When the officer curiously asks about Li Yuyu's identity, Chen Xiao dismisses the inquiry by labeling her a resident who is simply acting as his secretary for the day. With that settled, the military officer gestures toward the building and officially declares the fortress retrofitting project underway. Work begins as engineers consult detailed blueprints and cranes start lifting massive, high-tech solar arrays toward the roof. The officer explains with intense enthusiasm that these specific panels are 10 times more durable than the original setup and offer triple the energy storage and thermal conversion efficiency of standard models. Our boy listens closely and instructs Li Yuyu to note these specifications down on her clipboard. The upgrades continue with the installation of a military-grade backup generator. The officer points out that this industrial system can keep the entire building powered, even through long stretches of overcast weather. As workers use heavy drills that send sparks flying, the officer highlights the third item on the list: exterior walls reinforced with composite armor plating. He grins with excitement while describing the material as bulletproof, fireproof, and thermally insulated, claiming it is strong enough to make even a monster tremble. While the officer laughs hysterically at the sheer scale of the defense, Chen Xiao and Li Yuyu watch him with flat expressions, and the secretary wonders why the soldier is more excited about the fortress than they are. The military team then secures massive reinforced metal doors and installs blast-proof systems to control access to the structure. On the ceilings, they mount high-tech security cameras featuring automated target recognition software and finish the exterior with an independent satellite communication module. On the roof, a large satellite dish now stands over the complex. This massive spectacle draws the attention of the residents, including Grandpa Wang, who watches the construction in disbelief while holding his coffee. Linjing and Ailing stand in the courtyard looking up in awe, with the young girl remarking that they are finally turning into a secret base, while Linjing feels like she is living in a dream. Meanwhile, Mu Cheng watches the transformation through a window with a worried, sweating face. The focus then shifts to a military laboratory where scientists examine data on a computer monitor. A female scientist notes that our hero's body temperature, heart rate, and cellular activity are drastically different from a normal human's, suggesting his body is constantly adapting to extreme external environments. The military officer demands an explanation in plain English. The scientist explains their hypothesis that the disaster isn't just a simple heat wave. Instead, abnormal solar activity and magnetic disturbances are releasing anomalous energy into the biosphere. This stress is forcing a portion of the population to undergo adaptive mutations, which the male scientist clarifies is the actual source of awakened abilities. The officer realizes this means humans won't be the only ones mutating in the future, and turns to find Chen Xiao standing behind him. Because our hero has already seen other awakeners, he isn't surprised or scared by the news. He smirks and casually reveals to the officer that there is an organization called the ARC that is currently recruiting superpowered individuals. He mentions that he declined their invitation because he had no interest in joining them. This information causes the officer to worry, as he realizes another faction is competing with the military for the young mage's loyalty. As this discussion concludes, a female military technician sits at a computer desk staring at her monitor. She feels like she recognizes a face in the background of the surveillance footage. After pausing a video of Mu Cheng standing next to the protagonist, she pulls up a personnel file. The document reveals that Mu Cheng is actually a man named Wang Anchao, a high-risk defector from the armament department who has been missing for some time. Because cellular activity is continuing to climb within his body, a scientist at a military medical facility concludes that our hero possesses the unique physique of a true awakener. Chen Xiao sits on a metal examination table while these tests finish, eventually asking if they have gathered enough information. The military officer confirms the data is sufficient, allowing our boy to hop off the table and head toward the exit. While the commander offers an escort for the trip back, the situation shifts abruptly when a smartphone begins buzzing. After answering the call, the officer's expression darkens, and he immediately orders Chen Xiao to stop. The military officer walks up to our protagonist and holds out the phone to display a digital personnel file for a man named Wang Anchao. The photo reveals a stern, short-haired version of Mu Cheng, labeled as a high-risk missing target. Although Chen Xiao is surprised by the different vibe his associate gives off in the military photo, he maintains a cold and narrowed gaze. The commander wastes no time with small talk, explaining that this man is a wanted fugitive who has been seen entering and exiting the residential building with our boy. He demands that the young mage hand over the fugitive immediately, promising that the other residents will be kept out of the trouble if he complies. When our hero dismisses the demand, the officer becomes aggressive and declares that he has a direct order to bring the man in. He warns that the young mage isn't going anywhere, which prompts several armed soldiers in the lab to raise their rifles at our protagonist. Because negotiations have clearly failed, Chen Xiao raises his hand and summons a swirling aura of spatial energy. A dark portal completely consumes his silhouette, allowing him to vanish from the room instantly. This leaves the soldiers and their commander staring at the empty space in total shock. Furious that the target escaped, the officer orders an immediate suspension of the fortress project and mobilizes all armed forces to subdue Chen Xiao and capture the fugitive. Back at the apartment building, the atmosphere turns tense as Grandpa Wang notices the construction work has suddenly stopped. Nearby, Mu Chang senses that something is wrong and begins checking his handgun for a potential fight. His instincts are proven right when he spots soldiers rappelling down the side of the building toward his floor. As the military smashes through the glass windows, the building's automated defense system detects the breach and activates. This results in massive arcs of yellow electricity blasting the intruders, sending the soldiers flying backward with agonizing screams. In another part of the building, Lin Jing hears the commotion and tries to open her window, but she finds it sealed tight. A warning begins instructing her to remain in her room while defense protocols are active. Grandpa Wang quickly pulls Ailing away from the windows to find a safer area as the courtyard fills with smoke and gas from military launchers. A massive explosion rocks the side of the complex, forcing the old man and the girl to take cover under a heavy table. Grandpa Wang is deeply confused as to why the soldiers who were just helping them are now attacking. Ailing begins to fear that something terrible has happened to her big brother. However, the tension breaks when Chen Xiao suddenly reappears on a lower ledge of the building. He stands as a silent silhouette overlooking the military forces below, signaling to the terrified girl that he is back to defend his home.